As my Thane, I'm sworn to your service. I'll guard you and all you own with my life.
I swear upon Lady Mara that I will do everything within my power to prevent any harm from befalling you.
The heat of the battle is the fire that forges the strongest blades. That, and a true Nord never misses a chance to test her worth.
If we're going to survive this, we're going to have to be as ruthless as our enemies.
You've been a good friend to me. That means something.
May the gods watch over your battles, friend.
I suspect you'll be of greater good to Skyrim out there, in the world.
There's not much more I could ask of you. The gods, however, I suspect, may have plans for you elsewhere.
The Inquisitor of the Divine Order use a wide range of skills to support their allies while also simultaneously being front and center on the battlefield. While largely inspired by the Knight class from Oblivion, the build also used abilities from the Crusader and Healer classes that both empower her and her followers.
That's what I thought.
Before arriving in Skyrim, the Inquisitor was drafted into the Imperial Legion at a young age and would soon rise to ranks before being deployed to assist in the Civil War. However, her main purpose in Skyrim is not only to help defeat the Stormcloak Rebellion, but to establish a new religious faction, the Divine Order, with Saint Alessia as its patron. While not exactly a popular patron, as many of her followers in the past waged wars across the lands of Tamriel, this new order is to bring unity wherever they are established, and by doing so, they will scour the lands to eliminate evil while protecting the poor and innocent, restoring faith into people's lives impacted by the devastating events in Skyrim.
That's what I thought.
With Imperious as the racial overhaul mod of choice, the Inquisitor will be an Imperial, as they have an important ability to strengthen their allies. With Discipline, allies get an increase in armor rate and attack damage while fighting alongside your character. As this build requires to have at least one follower at all times, NPCs who specialize in heavy armor and melee combat are more ideal to have. For the other abilities, there's the Human Spirit, where at levels 10, 20, and 30, you can make permanent changes to your attributes, resistances, and skills. For attributes, I went with increasing and decreasing health. I figured the moderate increase is better than sacrificing both magicka and stamina, since they're also important for this build. For resistances, I used the same method by selecting fire. This is more of a personal choice, so you're free to choose whichever one to use, preferably one of the elemental selections. For skills, you have to select one each of a warrior, mage, and thief skill to increase and decrease. I went with increasing two-handed, restoration, and speech, along with selecting 3 skills that played no part in the build. Lastly, there's Cloven Star, which refills magicka and stamina and fortifies them by the amount restored for 30 seconds. Since this is a once per day power, you want to save this for important situations, as the Inquisitor tends to switch back and forth between melee and magic.
Just remember, that was your decision.
The standing stone of choice for this build will be the Lover, which will be covered in the Andromeda mod. Instead of the simple increase to experience, the stone allows you to cheat death after being slain. The stone also gives you a random intended armor or weapon periodically, and you can use this item to give to your followers. Of course, the higher level you are, the better chance to obtain greater enchantments with high level gear like ebony armor. And then there's the unlockable power, Lover's Kiss, where you magically form a bond with a target and they can be called to your location. So if you're exploring a dungeon and your follower isn't being very helpful, to be honest though, who is, you can dismiss them and use the Lover's Call power to summon your bonded target.
I'm right behind you.
What's really useful about this ability is that areas where followers cannot access, like Sovngarde or Apocrypha, can be summoned to assist you. The Lover's Call ability is also really useful with the Wintersun mod, where the Inquisitor is a follower of Saint Alessia. When reaching 100% favor, you have the ability to make certain NPCs as friends and or potential followers. How this works with the Lover's Stone is that you can target an NPC with Lover's Kiss, use the Lover's Call to teleport them to your location, and then use the dialogue option to make them your follower. Although for my playtesting, it didn't work on all NPCs, but there are some useful allies like Legate Rika.
Let's not waste any time.
Saint Alessia also has a very useful ability that when praying you can choose one of the divine blessings and their effects are increased based on your favor rating. Although the increase is quite small, it will get a substantial boost with a certain perk from Ordinator. Also, Saint Alessia's Shrine Blessings fortifies the armor rating and magic resistance of your followers, which complements the Discipline ability. With Ordinator covering the perks, the Inquisitor has a similar skill set of a Paladin, but you also know his perks in multiple branches that will benefit her allies. Starting with Restoration, one branch is focused on increasing the effectiveness of Shrine Blessings. With Pilgrim, Shrine Blessings can max out at 120% increase thanks to the Human Spirit ability. Gods and Mortals allow for longer blessings as well as gaining another ability depending on the chosen divine. Since you can switch Shrine Blessings on the fly, this is extremely useful when completing quests or exploring. So say you're about to enter a den full of necromancers. You want to have Arcade's Blessing since this extra effect burns reanimated undead and their summoners. Or if you prefer being at the front of battle, relying on blocking, use Standar. Have mages as your followers, use Julianos. Or if you want to upgrade your gear, use Xanathar.
One less monster in the world.
Rest of the restoration perks are tailored towards helping out your allies. Sacred Guardian automatically heals them when their health falls below 30%, and Warrior's Flame provides rapid stamina and magicka regeneration, and this can affect you or your ally. Other perks to make your ally stronger include the Illusion Commanding Presence branch, which as mentioned in the Oblivion Weirus build, gives them an increased armor rating, higher magic resistance, and more attack damage. In the Heavy Armor skill tree, there's Rallying Standard, a power that places a banner at your location, granting more attack damage and a higher armor rating, but only if you and your allies are wearing heavy armor. While this is a once per day power, having the Warbringer perk automatically places the banner when raising your hands or drawing your weapon, and this does not count towards the once per day limit. Lastly, there's Lethal Tempest, which increases your ally's armor rating for 30 seconds whenever you sprint in combat. Before continuing with the rest of the perks, I should mention the Dawnguard Runehammer, the Inquisitor's main weapon. For those that don't know, power bashing with a Warhammer creates a fire rune on the surface. Since this is the same as the fire rune spell, destruction perks are applied to it, including the Runecaster perk. So it can use this ability to place multiple fire runes without the cost of magicka. This also works really well with the Become Ethereal Shout. When using the shout, you remain in ethereal form after placing the fire rune, so this helps with dealing those pesky mages and archers. As for the other perks that benefit destruction, there's Combustion that makes a fire rune spell more powerful whenever the target loses health, and Doombringer, which is part of the heavy armor skill tree but increases destruction damage by 15% when the Rallying Standard banner is active. As for the melee side of the build, perks focusing on the two-handed and block skills will make use of bashing enemies while following up with power attacks. While Time Block is an effective perk for defense, you want to mostly rely on bashing your opponent then following up with a power attack. With both Skull Rattler and Deadfall, power attacking after a successful bash will cause a massive reduction to the target's armor rating.
I can take it. I'm sorry, but you left me with no choice.
There's also Ramming Speed that when used with Become Ethereal gives you a free running power attack that can one-shot regular enemies. Great way for starting off combat when facing multiple opponents. Lastly, there's Voice of Rage and Ruin, where there's a small chance to activate your current power when swinging your weapon. For this, I usually relied on Rallying Standard, as having it active in any combat situation is very useful as opposed to the once per day power version. However, if you're using a combat mod like Wildcat, you can also consider Colobian Star, since managing stamina is very important when using those types of mods.
Well done indeed.
Moving on to the key spells, you're going to need both Triumvirate and Apocalypse, as both provide plenty of them to assist your followers. First, I should mention the Spirit Guardian, a napped out level illusion spell that is part of the cleric archetype of Triumvirate. The Spirit Guardian manifests an NPC who acts as another follower, meaning they can be used to equip weapons and armor, obey regular follower commands, but more importantly, be used as another member in your party. However, you want to have an NPC as a follower before casting the spell, otherwise they won't follow you when the Guardian is present. Of course, you don't have to worry about this if you're using a mod to increase your follower count. Since the Ordinator perks have more benefits to followers wearing heavy armor, I always end up equipping the Guardian with the same type so they can be used as a tank. With the Cleric's Restoration spells, these are concentration-based buffs that benefit both the Inquisitor and her party members, and they also have an additional effect when she stops concentrating. Spells I end up using the most were Aura Might, that grants bonus attack damage whenever concentrating, and when released, sends out a burst of Sunfire damage. Aura Vigor heals yourself and your allies, and gains invulnerability for a few seconds after you stop concentrating. And Aura Thorns, which reflects Sunfire damage to enemies within melee range, and when released, heals your allies. While these spells can be dual casted, I usually end up casting 2 different ones from each hand, since they provided better support for followers. Lastly, for destruction, there's Consecrated Ground, which creates a large area of Sunfire damage. This spell is quite powerful, especially when dual casted, because when you factor in perks that increase destruction damage, it can strip away a large portion of the enemy's health bar throughout its entire duration, especially for the undead. Other 2 noteworthy spells are Holy Fire and Holy Shock, which when casted will provide elemental damage to your power attacks, so more attack damage for the warhammer. Now in Apocalypse, there are 2 master level spells I find to be essential for the Inquisitor to have. There's King's Heart, which creates a holy spark around the caster that fortifies skills and provides rapid healing over time, so very beneficial if you want to be front and center on the battlefield. The other is God Form, which is more useful for spell casting since it provides rapid magicka regeneration when you're at full health. So before entering combat, you can start by using God Form, apply spells like Rally and Courage on your followers, and during battle use the aura spells from Triumvirate without worrying about running out of magicka. Another key spell is Channel Energies, where you can cast beneficial spells onto your allies, and these include King's Heart and God Form. From my playtesting, there's pretty much no limit on what spells you can use as long as they're not the same type, like Cloak and Flesh spells. Other spells from Apocalypse that you want to consider are, and these can be applied to your followers with Channel Energies, Treating Winds for a temporary health boost, Healing Blossom for an automatic health replenishment, and Resurgence that also automatically heals the target, but only when your health falls below 50%. Of course, a lot of these spells are best used before entering combat, so if you don't like spending the time casting them, then you can use Oka's Recital, which can save you a lot of magicka. As for the vanilla spells, you have the illusion ones, Courage, Rally, and a Call to Arms, that benefit your followers. Fun fact though is that all 3 of these spells stack with each other for an extra 100 points in health and stamina, so I ended up using all 3 before a boss fight. Though I had to rely on a scroll version of a Call to Arms since I didn't have enough magicka to cast a master level spell. Both Vampire's Bane and Stendar's Aura are great at dealing with undead enemies, especially using Channel Energies to cast Stendar's Aura on your allies. As for the shouts, I already mentioned how useful Become Ethereal is, but another important one is Battle Fury, which increases your allies' attack speed in combat. This only applies to unenchanted weapons though, so if you're planning to use this shout, make sure your followers are equipped properly. For the gear, I'm using the Resplendent Armor set, mainly because the red variant has colors that would fit in with the Imperial Legion. Not to mention the armor set does have a Paladin look to it, though it does require HTT physics to work, which may not be for everyone, so an alternate option is the Peacekeeper armor. Like the Resplendent Armor, it also has a red variant that fits with the Imperial Legion colors, or you can install both and give one of the sets to your followers, since both match really well together. Also, both sets require the Ebony Smithing perk. Now that we cover all the spells, perks, and abilities, let's go over some special moves that will get the most out of the Inquisitor's arsenal. First one I call Divine Protection, and this basically buffs your allies with a number of spells. You start off by casting God Form for the rapid magicka regeneration, then follow up with all 3 of Courage, Rally, and a Call to Arms. Then use Channel Energies to apply King's Heart and any other spell you wish. I usually use this move before facing boss type enemies in order to save the scroll for a Call to Arms. Next one is called Battlefield Sanctification. This move makes full use of the Inquisitor's destruction skills. Start off by activating Rallying Standard, then dual cast Consecrated Ground, which will be amplified by the Doombringer perk. Then use all 3 words of Become Ethereal and start placing fire wounds from your warhammer. This is another move that I usually use against boss type enemies, but can also be used to start off combat when facing multiple opponents.
You can't win this!
For the last special move called Immortal Allies, this is more if you want your followers to do most of the heavy work. Start off by casting God form, and when combat starts, use the Battle Fury shout. While they're engaged against enemies, cast both Aura Might and Aura Vigor, so your followers can do more damage while also recovering their health. Because of God form, magicka will not run out, so you can keep holding onto the spells while your allies finish off enemies.
The enemy is only a fool lets himself get surrounded.
Before wrapping things up, I want to add some recommended followers that I use throughout my playthrough, and this will add in some role-playing as well. While doing the Civil War questline, I usually head Uthgur the Unbroken. If you don't know, she's the one that's sulking in the Bannered Mare after getting kicked out of the Companions, so convincing her to join the Legion was more of a redemption arc for her. And of course, her close combat skills are perfectly suited for this build. Mjolnir the Lioness has a similar skill set, and with her situation, you can convince her to fight against more threatening enemies rather than dealing with petty thieves. Irander is another character searching for redemption after the events in Nightcaller Temple. While not a combat specialist, his use of long-range destruction spells can be effective while your character fights out front. And lastly, there's Isran, who is your best option when fighting against Draugrs and vampires. He usually starts off combat by casting Stendarr's aura, so you don't have to use the Channel Energy spell to cast it on him. He's also accompanied by one of the armored trolls, so even more support for your party. Some final notes about recommended mods. When doing the playthrough, I didn't use any follower mods since they usually add more members to your party, and in doing so make the game too easy. But if you want, you can check out ones like Nether's Follower Framework or Simple Follower Extension to increase your follower count as well as have more control over your party members. And if you're more concerned about game balance, you want to include either difficulty balance or party damage control, since this build makes followers overpowered. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this build. Next week will be a vampire build based around the role class from Oblivion who happens to worship Sanguine. Also, don't forget to check out the gameplay video of this build to see it in action. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.